Hi everyone, welcome back to the Multicultural Festival. We hope that you've been enjoying the festivities we've had today. And now for tonight, we're going to have RV, who's going to be teaching us how to make some delicious Thai-marinated tofu with fresh vegetables, spring rolls, and a hot chili sauce, and toran, which is a popular Filipino banana treat. Perfect. So take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yes, so welcome. My name is RV, and I will be showing you, and I hope you can join in, preparing the dishes as well. We'll be making really popular. I think you've had this dish at some point, maybe not. Otherwise, you're in for a treat. A popular street food in Thailand, which are spring rolls, fresh spring rolls with our vegetables. We've chosen some veggies that are somewhat readily available in Ontario, in Guelph. So we'll be making those, as well as simple, very simple dipping sauce to go with the spring rolls. And then, so that's our nice savory dish that we'll be making. And then the next one, after the fresh spring rolls, we'll also be making another type of spring rolls, but this time it's a very popular dish in the Philippines. I grew up eating these spring rolls, and they're called turon, and which is essentially a Filipino spring rolls, banana spring rolls with sugar. So it's a dessert type, or typically in the Philippines, what we would have them for would be during our merienda, which is sort of an in-between mid-morning or late afternoon snacks. So that's sort of that's what we usually have for our snacks. And so without further ado, I think what we'll do first is we'll make our spring rolls, the fresh spring rolls. And then it's very easy. Just take some time to get used to the rolling. But once you get used to it, it's quite fun to make these babies. So the first thing to do in this case will be to marinate our tofu. And so I've got some already pre-cut in strips, about a centimeter or a quarter of an inch thickness of tofu. And they can be, they don't need to be perfectly the same, but just make sure that they're somewhat thin enough to fit into the spring rolls that we'll be making. So I've got my recipe book here, my recipe sheet, so that I can make sure I've got the exact measurements. So we have a quarter cup of tamari. Now this dish, I should emphasize, is actually vegan and gluten-free, naturally vegan and gluten-free. So it's really good for those individuals who are watching, their gluten and veggie intake. So we've got, if you are not particular about the gluten, you can certainly use just regular soy sauce, but in this case, I'm using tamari. You can also use Bragg sauce, which is a gluten-free soy sauce as well. Okay, so we have a quarter cup of this, and I'm just going to add it into our mixing bowl. And then half a teaspoon of dried chilies. So I've pre-measured some already here. We've got half a teaspoon of dried chilies, a quarter teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half a teaspoon of ground coriander. Okay, so we'll add these guys into our mixing bowl with our soy sauce. And this is, sorry, this is actually our, yeah, this is our marinated. So, and then that's it. That's pretty much it. We've got the soy sauce, the salt, chili flakes, and coriander powder, and the garlic powder. So just give that a mix. And then we'll just add it to our already pre-cut tofu, like so. Okay. And we'll just give these guys, make sure they're nice and marinated all the way through. Now, typically you would be marinating these ones for about an hour to overnight. But given our time that we have today, this is still okay to use. So it will still be able to marinate. We'll be doing a little bit of, we'll make our dipping sauce as well. So this will give it a bit more time to marinate as well, okay? So we'll just leave this to just soak up those nice juices. And in the meantime, we are going to make our dipping sauce. And this, it's a hot dipping sauce, very simple. There's just some lime or lemon juice, some chopped garlic. Right here, we've got a tablespoonful of chopped garlic, some fresh hot chilies. So I've got some samples here of chilies, fresh chilies. Now, depending on the size and depending on how hot you would like the sauce to be, you can certainly add 6. I've written down 6 hot chilies, but in this case, I'm just going to, which I've already chopped up here, just two fresh chilies. They were quite big, so I just wanted to kind of minimize the heat for myself. So it's really up to you how hot you want your sauce to be, okay? So roughly about 2 to 6 fresh chilies, again, depending on the size too. So, right, typically about 2 inches would be the size of a fresh chili here. So I've got 2 in mind, and then a tablespoon of chopped garlic. I believe a tablespoon of cane sugar. You can use honey if you want, or regular sugar. In this case, I've just got my cane sugar. And then 3 tablespoonfuls of fresh lime juice, and our soy sauce, which is 3 tablespoonfuls as well. All right, so using the same, just going to use the same bowl. Just give that a quick rinse. And we're just putting all of those ingredients together. Add a spoon. And then just mixing, adding the lime juice. Make sure it's fresh squeezed lime juice or lemon, whichever you have on hand. That's pretty much it. So we'll just let this sit until it's ready to be used. And that's essentially when we're done rolling our spring rolls. And that's it. So any questions so far before we continue with the rolling?
I was just wondering, can we use any kind of tofu? Like, are you using soft, medium, extra firm, or is anything okay?
Good question. Yeah, so we're using extra firm tofu in this case. And so in segue to that, if you do want to use something other than tofu, you are certainly welcome to use some shrimp if you want. Another thing that some would use would be fry, or like a fried egg, somewhat like an omelet. You can cut that into thin strips and then use that one in lieu of the tofu. But you can certainly add that as well if you want. So the key to making the spring rolls is to not overfill them too much, because then it would just fall apart. You know, that's I find when I'm teaching this particular dish, people tend to kind of put too much all at once, and then it just becomes, you know, it just falls apart. So just, you know, just make sure you're choosing some ingredients that are that's not too you know, too filling, too much, so to speak. And another thing I wanted to add as well is, you know, we can sure we've got the egg, you know, the red peppers and the cucumbers, but you can also use other vegetables and fruit, such as mango, if you want to go a little bit more exotic. You can also add some asparagus, which are in season right now. You might want to just blanch the asparagus quickly, or if you want it raw, that's fine too. And avocado is another good addition to making the spring rolls. And I mean, really, it's your imagination. You know, use your imagination in this. You know, it's kind of like if you're making a salad, for example. That's essentially, you know, any kind of salad that you want. You can add some arugula in there. In this case, we're just using some leaf lettuce, but you can add some arugula or some baby spinach. I've added strawberries in the past. That's kind of a different, but it's actually quite delicious. So, but just to make it simple for us today, we're just going to make some, you know, some with lettuce, grated carrots, cucumber cut in thin strips, and then our red pepper. All right, and then the tofu in this case. Okay, so from here, we are ready to make some spring rolls. Just gonna set my peppers aside. And to make the spring rolls, we would need our rice paper. So I've got here, I have some leftover rice paper from another, from when I made some in the past, but the brand that I like to use is called Rose Brand. And these are, you know, rice papers are readily available pretty much in all supermarkets now, but this, which I get at the Asian supermarket and in town, this is the brand that I find is really dependable, and they don't stick too much either, even when you leave them, you know, for a few hours. So the one thing that I would like to emphasize as well when you're making spring rolls is that they need to be eaten right away, as fresh as possible. I mean, certainly you can make them, you know, in the morning, and if you want to serve them, say in the afternoon or in the, you know, early in the evening, that would be okay. Just make sure that they're wrapped properly, sealed, or stored in a sealed container before you use them for that day. But sadly, you can't, you know, it doesn't really taste as good the next day. The rice paper just ends up kind of it just gets very hard at that point. It's just the way they are. So I highly recommend just eating them fresh as soon as you make them. You know, if you need a few hours to sort of prepare other dishes, that's okay, but definitely they're good the day of when you make them. Okay, so from here, I have a bowl of warm water. It can be, you know, just make sure it's lukewarm. It doesn't need to be hot. If the water's hot, what happens is, what we'll be doing is we're actually dipping this into the water. So if you're using hot water, just be prepared that the rice paper will start to soften very quickly. And if you've got some some ingredients that you need to add, and there's a lot. Just make sure that you are quick enough to do the rolling. You'll see what I mean when we start making the spring rolls. But in this case, I have a fairly lukewarm temperature water. So I am going to just gently, you have to be a bit gentle because they do crack if you just kind of plunge your rice paper in. So just make sure you're just kind of rotating. If your bowl is not wide enough, just going to show you here. If it's not wide enough, then just you can just kind of rotate it like so. And then just shake the excess water off from that rice paper. And make sure you have a cutting board to place your rice paper on. And then from here, I'm not sure if you can see, there we go. I'm just going to, I've got some already pre-washed leaf lettuce. And make sure it's, it's not too big. Like I've got if it's a big leaf lettuce, you can cut that in half, but this is fairly good size that fits onto sort of in the middle of the rice paper. So I've got the grated carrots here, adding the cucumber and red pepper and our marinated tofu. Okay, and then we also have some fresh mint. I've just got some fresh mint here in the garden, 2 mint leaves. And if you like cilantro like I do, I'll add a little bit of cilantro in there too, or a lot, depending on how much you like cilantro. So at this point, you can see the rice paper has already softened, ready to be rolled essentially. So it just takes time for the rice paper to absorb the water. And then once it's absorbed the water, then it softens quite nicely. And so I've just kind of rolled it and then rolled the side like so, and then the other side, and then just roll it until you get to the very end. And then that's it. All right. Rice paper, surprisingly enough, is very, very forgiving. Just so you know, don't be intimidated. Lots of people would come to me and say, I can't do it, but it's really easy once you get the hang of it. I mean, you probably just need a few practices before you can really master the art of rolling. Okay, so we've got 7 more to go, and we might as well just go ahead and roll all 7 rice papers. And if you have any questions from here, please feel free to ask. I can't really see anybody, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep rolling.
What's some of your favorite food you made growing up, or just some of the food you like to make as an adult? Just generally, you can chit chat. Tell us a bit about cuisine.
Well, pasta is my favorite food to make, especially when it's fresh pasta, right? I know that's not really within my sort of cultural range, but on that note, I don't know. I like making the chicken satay, which is another Thai barbecue chicken that with peanut sauce. That's always a favorite dish, and it's also a popular dish that I make when I do some catering events. That seems to be a really popular dish that people order.
And that's mint you're adding, right? Or
pardon me.
Is that mint that you're adding, or?
Yeah, I had some mint and then some cilantro. Oh. Yeah, so leaf lettuce, the usual carrot. You just kind of go through the the veggie ingredients as we go along. And mint is so yummy, especially at this time of the year. When they're nice and fresh. Okay.
Especially fresh rolls. They're really good with mint.
Yeah, I mean, definitely use as much mint as you can, as you want, if you want, because they're really good. Okay, so I think from here, instead of rolling all 7 of them, I will just make one more, and then we can proceed to, I'll show you how to plate our spring rolls with the dipping sauce, so you have an idea, you know, you can impress your friends on how to present your beautiful, delicious spring rolls. Okay, so we've got the lettuce, carrots, cucumber, red pepper, tofu, and fresh mint. Now, when I do my catering, and I've got, you know, I don't know, 100 spring rolls to make, what I typically do is I would have sort of like an assembly, you know, way of making. So I would have at least 4 or 5 spring rolls or rice paper kind of done, and then I just, you know, do it. And you can try that next time too. It's actually quite fun. Just make sure, like I said, watch out for the rice paper, because you don't want the rice paper to get too soft, because once it's really, really, really soft, then it's challenging to work with it. Like it just gets all stuck to, you know, in your hands, or it's just harder to roll if the rice paper is too soft, if that makes sense. Okay, so here we are. We've got 3 rolled spring rolls, and I'm just going to give you a little, just an idea how spring rolls can be plated nicely. So we've got our little dipping sauce bowl right here, and then here's our already pre-made dipping sauce, and I'm just gonna try it just to see what it tastes like too. Make sure you try it before you serve it to your friends. And even with the 2 tiny fresh chilies, it's a killer. It's pretty hot. So just be careful when you're making the dipping sauce. Taste it first before you serve it, unless you know that your friends are really into hot sauce. Just gonna wipe that off. The sauce just kind of drip over. So there we go. Sauce, and then a knife. So when you're cutting a spring roll, make sure the knife is slightly damp, because that's how the knife can just slide nicely onto, you know, through the spring roll. So I'm just cutting it on a diagonal, like so. And as you can see, lovely, beautiful colors of red or orange and greens and some reds in there. So I'm just kind of, you know, placing them like so, just to make them nice and pretty. You can also cut them, especially this one is a little bit longer than the other 2. So what I would normally do too is I would just cut them like a sushi type, straight angle instead of on an angle. So just straight cut rather. And then that way you can also just place them on there at the bottom instead of on an angle. And then you've got your nice, you know, spring rolls like so. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this again on an angle, just for fun.
That's looking delicious. And we're getting some comments on Facebook. Brian says, making pasta tonight, not fresh though. And Lori says, spring rolls are my fave. So
yeah. Okay. That's something there. So there we are. Nice and simple. I mean, you saw how that was made. Really easy. I think the hardest part of it is just preparing the vegetables. And that's crucial. You know, if you are going to make the spring rolls, make sure the vegetables are already prepped ahead of time, and make sure they're nice and fresh too. And then that way, it's just a matter of just rolling the spring rolls. So that's the first one that we are here to make. And then the second one is the Filipino turon. Okay, so pardon me.
Sorry, Lori says, thanks for the tip on the rice paper and not over soaking.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Lori. All right. And yes, again, it's really, it's you know, you'll just have to get to know the different brands of spring rolls out there, of rice paper rather, because there's so many different kinds. And, you know, it's just a matter of just trying different brands until you find the brand that you like to use. In my case, it's the Rose brand. Okay, so I'll set this aside, and we are ready to make our turon. So we have, I'm using two kinds of bananas so that I can just show you, you know, and again, you can sort of just use your own judgment and see what you prefer better. I will be using the plantain. Make sure, and these are readily available in supermarkets as well. So make sure the plantain is super ripe. And the way to tell that it's ripe is that, first of all, it's soft and it's turning kind of dark brown and some spots are forming on the skin. And that's a good sign that it is good to, you know, it's ready to use for this particular dish that we're making. Now, typically, I've written on the recipe that I sent out, typically in the Philippines, what we would be using is a banana variety, which is called saba. So there's so many different varieties of bananas, especially in the tropics. Well, definitely in the tropics, but the one that we use for this dish is called saba, which is it's kind of a, you know, short and fat, basically. Like it's really, they're almost angular as well. Like they're not as roundish as our typical bananas that we see here, but now they're usually they can be available at the supermarket sometimes, but it's really rare that they are available there. So I just, you know, just again, to make it simple for us today, we're going to use some plantain. I bought this banana plantain about a week ago to be ready for today, and it's perfect. It was somewhat greenish when I bought it, and now it's just good to go. So, and then I also just use you know, a regular banana that we find in all grocery stores. So I'm just going to make here. All right, so we've got our banana and the plantain. So we'll start with just peeling the plantain, and yeah, it's nice and soft. Really good to use. And so we will, for this dish, we are going, so I just cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut it again, half lengthwise. Okay, so now we've got this. So, you know, again, the sabah that we would normally use is this length. And then we just cut it in half, and then that would be enough to make one. But with this, we're cutting it basically in quarters for the plantain.
Coco is wondering, is there any way to make the ripening process faster if you want it in a hurry?
Which one, sorry?
The ripening process for the plantain?
Oh, the ripening. Yeah, you could probably put it in a brown bag, just like, you know, when we want to ripen our avocado, for example. Yeah, it would be in a brown bag. Yeah, that's, I don't know if there's any other way. If you guys know of another way, let me know. I think somebody had said to me too, if you sit it near a tomato, it will ripen quicker as well. Bananas in this case. So, but I guess if you're going to, well, banana, you know, you'll find regular bananas are actually really good to use for this one. They're both good, and there is, you know, there will be a difference in the flavor. The plantain, you'll notice, is not as sweet as a regular banana, and it's slightly firmer than our regular banana, which would be softer once it's cooked. Okay. All right. So from here, we are going to have some brown sugar, about a quarter brown sugar. I'm just kind of guesstimating it, just depending on the on how big the bananas are. But you know, you can add or take away the sugar. And again, depending on how much sugar you're using to coat. So what we're doing is we're going to coat our banana, our sliced up banana, with some brown sugar, and make sure it's not too much. I'm just kind of lightly coating the outside. This is just to give it some sweetness. And so I'm just going to set that aside and do the same for the rest of the bananas. Again, if you prefer to not add any bananas, now again, this is just the traditional way, of course. If you prefer not to add any sugar, that's perfectly fine as well. But I'm just showing you the traditional way of making this dish. Okay. And then once the bananas are coated, then we will slice up our jackfruit. And I'll talk about the jackfruit a little bit more as well shortly. Just wanted to get this done. Again, this is also a very, very quick dish to make, especially, you know, for a little snack, a mid-afternoon snack. It's just, you know, just quick bananas and a little bit of sugar, and then just wrapping them up in our, in the Philippines, we call it lumpia or lumpia wrapper, but that's essentially the same as the spring roll wrappers, which is right here. This is in my fridge, and I've already used, this was actually in my freezer. I've already used some wrappers from before, and any leftover that I have, I just stick it in the freezer, make sure it's wrapped well, and then you can just take it out of the freezer, let it thaw out for a few minutes. Well, not a few minutes, but you could actually leave it overnight in the fridge if you prefer, and then it's good to go when you're ready to use it. So, so this is the brand of spring rolls that I use, TYJ. You can get these at any supermarkets in the frozen section. these days as well. Okay, so set this aside for a bit. And then I wanted to just talk about the jackfruit. So the jackfruit that I have today, I actually bought some frozen. Now I know I've mentioned on the recipe, you can use the canned, which is right here, canned jackfruit. But I find the canned jackfruit have sugar syrup in them. So I try not to use this too much, but I just bought it just to show it to you as well. You know, if you want to use this, that's okay. But in this case, we're using a frozen one, no sugar added. It's just jackfruit, plain jackfruit. And so jackfruit, just to briefly talk about it, is a fruit that's very common in the tropics again, and they're quite big with spiky skin, and you can use the flesh. So you would have to, cut it in half and sort of scoop the flesh out, but you can use either ripe or unripe jackfruit. And the unripe, the green jackfruit, which would be unripe, is you can use it for savory dishes. And then for dessert, for something sweet, you would have to use the ripe jackfruit, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about the jackfruit. There's a lot to talk about, but we'll just keep it simple for today. So from here, here's just a piece of jackfruit. I'm just going to slice each piece into thin strips, like so. I'm just going to do a few more. And again, some people are not really too fond of jackfruit. For some reason, maybe it's the smell. It does have a very strong taste and smell. It's not bad. It's just really strong. And some people don't particularly like it. I love it. I think it's great. So you can use it. You're free to omit this ingredient, but if you want to try it, or you've tried it and you really enjoy it, then I would suggest definitely using some jackfruit. So now we've got some bananas rolled in sugar, jackfruit cut up, and that's it. Now we're ready to roll our bananas, our turron. So from here we'll get a plate. And then, so before I forget, actually, what we should do is we're going to preheat our oil. So I've got about got a cast iron pan here. I hope you can see it. And I've got about probably just a little under half an inch of oil in the pan. Any kind of cooking oil, vegetable oil. In this case, I'm using sunflower oil, and just gonna do that. Sunflower oil. Sorry, somebody's trying to text me and I can't see what's going on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're preheating our oil, and while this is preheating, so we'll have it at about medium high heat. Okay, and so that we're ready. Once the bananas are rolled, then the oil will be ready to go, or we'll be ready to use it. So using our spring roll wrappers, they are a little bit delicate. Again, if you're not familiar with this particular wrapper, you just have to, oh, you didn't see that one. Just kind of have to peel it off gently. Make sure it's nice and thawed out so that you're not, so that it's nice and easy to lift off. Okay, so here's our plate, and our spring roll is laid on top, or the wrapper. And so have the point sort of a shape in the diamond shape. So the pointy part towards you. All right. And then we'll just grab our banana piece and a few strips of jackfruit. And that's it. And so about a third, halfway third from the middle towards you. That makes sense. I hope you can see that. Okay, so we're just going to place it like so, creating basically sort of like an envelope type shape. Okay, so now we're just rolling it, making sure it's nice and firm. It's not loose when you're rolling, so that you can kind of have so it's nice and firm basically. And then I have my little bowl of water here. This is just to seal the edge so it stays nice and sealed like so. Okay, that's one. So we'll be making, according to the recipe, we'll be making 8 spring rolls. Hope we can make 8 spring rolls from this. So as I'm rolling, or while I'm rolling, I wanted to just give you a few tips or some other options, I would say, about our banana turon. You can actually, if you're watching your oil intake, which we all are these days, you can bake the spring rolls. And what you would do is, and again, because of time constraint, you would have to bake it for about half an hour or so. But if you have the time, try and experiment next time if you wish to. I hope you'll make this dish again. So you would have to just brush the top of the spring rolls with melted butter or melted coconut oil, just to get that crispiness. Now, of course, baking, it won't really have that crispy effect that we get from frying our spring rolls, but it's still good. Just brush with butter or coconut oil, and then bake it at 400 degrees for half an hour. So that would be one option. Well, that's an option. We have the other alternative to cooking our spring rolls. Okay, so I can feel my pan getting warm, so I better just hurry up. You can also use, I've seen now people are using sort of some other, to make it more, I guess, non-traditional turon. I've seen people using Nutella now, and it would work if you're baking it. I can't really see it working if you're deep frying it, but maybe. I've never actually tried it. So, but with you can add Nutella, sort of a drizzle of Nutella inside, or some chocolate chips in there too, and then you just get this nice melted chocolate when they're done. So that's one way. I've seen people using, adding some whipped cream as well, or ice cream to go with the cooked turon. So there's a lot of different ways to use or to add to this dish now. So ice cream, some whipped cream, chocolate sauce or caramel sauce. I mean, it's pretty endless, really. It's just lots of ideas up there now. Okay, I'm gonna do one more, and then we'll start to fry these guys. Okay. And one tip, that I would suggest is, I would probably lift or separate the wrappers ahead of time, and then I'm just going to turn my oil down just a tad for now, and then that way it's just easier to just wrap as you go or roll as you go. Okay, I'm just going to make this really quick. Any questions, guys? No? All right. So one last roll, and then make sure you're sealing the edge with water. I hope some people are actually joining along, cooking along with me today. Be fun to know. Okay, just gonna wash my hands, and then we're ready to fry. It's not really a deep fry. It's it's just one side, and then you have to flip it and then do the other side. Okay, and the way to test the oil, aside from a thermometer, is just have some water splatter in there. It's good to go. Okay, so or placing the sealed side down, place it gently. So. And so when you're cooking, 4 is probably enough to fit in a pan. And then you don't want to overcrowd the pan too much either, because then they'll just stick together, or it may not. It would take longer to cook the spring rolls too. So just want to make sure you guys can see it. So it takes about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, depending on how hot your oil is. And while these guys are frying, I will.
We have some questions for you, RV.
Yeah, we have Coco is wondering if you've ever made the non-traditional ones before.
In what way? Like adding some chocolate kind of thing, or?
Yeah.
I have actually, and I've actually baked.
And ice cream.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Ice cream, she's wondering. Chocolate and ice cream. You have made them before that way?
I have, yeah. So baking them, that's how I've made them, and using coconut oil. That's always nice. And it you don't really taste the coconut oil that much, but it's it's just it's a good way to use it if you're going vegan, for example. If you don't want any butter, for example, coconut oil would be the way to go. Okay. Yes, it's delicious. Thanks, Coco. Yeah, no, wait till you try. And again, just like our fresh spring rolls, these are really good when they're freshly made as well. You could probably just have them, you can make them ahead of time, but not for too long. I would say for an hour, and then you really have to. It is better to serve them right away. while they're still warm. Okay, so I'm going to flip my spring rolls now. Similar to our regular savory spring rolls, except this one we're just using bananas instead of veggies and other savory ingredients. So I've got my paper towel ready here, just to soak up the excess oil.
Helen is wondering, can you use other fruit, RV, along with the banana?
Absolutely, yes, good question. You can definitely add some, I've tried it with like just shredded coconut. That's a really nice one to use. You can use some peaches. Blueberries would be good too. I've never actually tried the blueberries, but I'm thinking that would be another good fruit to add with this. Okay, but really any kind of fruit would be fine. Just make sure you're cutting them finely so that they can cook along with the bananas well. Okay, that's pretty much it. Place these guys. And so with the baking, when I baked the turon, I've also added a little bit of turbinado sugar on top, just to add that texture and caramelized sugar on top. And that's really nice as well. That's another way to just change it up a bit too. Okay. And on the recipe that I gave you, I have, just to kind of, I've modified it a little bit just to make it a bit more, North American style. I've added, on the recipe, you'll see some maple syrup added in there too, which is to make it a little bit more Canadian like. Okay, so for here, we'll just going to show you how it can be plated as well. And just going to grab the cutting board over here. And similar to the fresh spring rolls, you can cut it in half on an angle to show the inside.
We just have another question from Helen. She's just wondering for the vegetable spring roll, if she uses shrimp, how should it be prepared?
Yes, good question, Helen. So you can probably, cooked shrimp are readily available in the supermarket these days. So just the, regular cooked or steamed shrimp, and, just peeled. And you might want to cut it in half lengthwise and then sort of place it, place it on top of the veggies. You want it to be on top so that when you're rolling, the shrimp will show nicely, just more for aesthetic, aesthetically than just burying it amongst the vegetables. That makes sense. So it's kind of nice to just place it on top and then roll it, and then that way the shrimp will show nicely. Okay. Hope that answered your question. Okay. So here we are. We've got a mixture of some plantain and regular bananas, just cutting them in half here. And so I'll just show you two ways to plate this. Maybe I should use plate. Two small plates. Yeah, got that. We've got this. So one way would be to sprinkle some icing sugar. This is totally optional, but it's a nice way to kind of decorate it a little bit. And then you just sort of sprinkle some icing sugar, like so. And then you might want to add a little bit of mint, just for added decoration, like so. You've got a likely, like a decadent dessert that you just made in seconds. So that's one way. And then the other way is, got some maple syrup here. And I would just take a spoonful and just sort of drizzle it, like so. And we can use, a friend of mine came by and dropped me or left me this coconut whipped cream. So I'm going to use it for this presentation today. And I could just sort of, I've actually never used this before. I'm supposed to shake it. Like so. And then a little bit of cinnamon powder. Oops, it's starting to just melt away because it's still hot. So just kind of giving you some different options just to, you know, make your dish look pretty. So there we go. You can add the mint there. And voila. That's it. And that's it.
Yeah,
Go over my time.
that's okay. Thank you so much for sharing all the delicious food that you had today. We hope you had fun, and we definitely
had
watching. Everyone saying it looks so amazing. So thank you again, Arvi.
my pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Hope you make these dishes soon.
For sure.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good. Bye.